Hey there, and welcome to my channel. I am Jessie, the owner of Winter Moon Gifts, which is my small handcrafted business. Today, I want to have real talk about the ups and the downs of running a small business, what my goals and dreams for 2024 were, how it actually turned out, and what I'm aiming for in 2025. So, if you're also a small business streamer or thinking about starting your own, stick around. You're in the right place. Let's backtrack to January last year, 2024, where I was feeling pretty hopeful. I was, coming off of 2023, which was a much better year for me than 2022 was. I mean, who else struggled in 2022? It was that year where people were really kind of starting to go out and about and travel again after the pandemic, but with the cost of fuel and food being so astronomically high, people weren't impulse buying anything. So 2022 was not a good year for me. So I was very hopeful going into 2024 that it would be even better, just slowly get better. And so I felt like it was going to be my year. I knew that I needed to work harder and do better on social media presence because I really want to focus on online sales. I want my online sales to bring in more revenue than these farmers markets do that I go to year after year. So I started learning about, social media marketing and algorithms and how all of that worked. And then with all of that, I learned about Amazon Handmade, which opened a whole new world for me. A plus content and brand stores and even trademarking. Like what you can do with a trademark on Amazon is so much more than what you can do without one. So I started looking into trademarking my business, and I also started this YouTube channel a year ago, almost exactly. So I took a deep dive into trademarking Winter Moon Gifts and quickly realized it was something I needed to do. I can't tell you how many times just random customers would come into my booth at the farmers markets and have told me how much they love my business name. And after being in business for almost 5 years at that point, I knew that it was really time for me to start protecting it. I also learned that having a trademarked business could really help with selling on Amazon. I feel like not a lot of people know about Amazon Handmade, and it's a great platform for makers like me. It can be a great platform for makers like me, but my long-term goal is eventually to move into the main Amazon platform so I can reach even a bigger audience. I spent about a month going back and forth whether to actually move forward with trademarking. I knew it was a smart business decision, but the cost of it is what really made me hesitate. I looked into filing the application on my own, but it just was really obvious to me that having an attorney in my corner was just really the best way to go forward with it. So in March, I took the plunge and I hired an attorney and officially started the trademarking process. She was super transparent about the timeline, letting me know that it would literally take months before the USPTO examining attorney would even be assigned to my application. And then once that happened, they'd review it, research whether there's any existing trademarks that could possibly have a likelihood of confusion with my business name, which essentially, if there is, then my application is denied. But fortunately, with Amazon Handmade, you can start your branded store and get the access to the A plus content just by proving that you have an application submitted with the USPTO. So I started building my Amazon store. I also realized that with the added attorney fees I would be paying monthly for at least a year, I needed to increase my income, which meant adding another farmer's market to my summer season. I knew it would be a ton of work and that I'd have to essentially, not essentially, I'd have to sacrifice my summer. But I had to make it happen. So I applied for a market that's 2 hours away from me and committed to vending every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from June through October. Jumped to midway through the year, though, I started to realize that one of my existing markets just was no longer the right fit for my business, which was heartbreaking for me because it was the very first market I ever started back in 2020 when all of this began. But I expanded into the metal art. I started powder coating and working on building my website and my Amazon presence. It really became clear that I needed to also elevate my candle line to a more luxurious feel, which would increase the costs. And the market that I was attending, they cater to a more lower income dynamic, which I very much respect. I think it's amazing that people can use their EBT cards to purchase locally grown produce and meats, and they're also supporting local farmers. I think it's amazing. But for me, that market just wasn't working for me anymore. I was making no money, quite literally. It was at a point where it felt, in some cases it was costing me money to attend those markets because my product isn't a, a need to have, it's a want to have. So I wasn't making the sales. Thankfully, though, the new market, even though it was 2 hours away, it was a great financial decision for me. But it was tough because, I gave up my annual camping trip that I've done since I was a teenager with a bunch of friends and family, having barbecues and bonfire nights with friends and family, or I mean, even just having downtime. Like, I didn't have a moment to breathe at all, but I kept pushing forward. And during all of this, I also was struggling with improving my candle line. I had the ugly tins that I just despised, and I knew I needed to ditch them. They needed to go away. But for whatever reason, I was really struggling with finding the right alternative, something that I was happy with. And eventually, I discovered concrete vessels and decided that that seemed like a good idea. The cost, aside from my time into making them, was low enough that I wouldn't have to exuberantly raise my candle prices. But it also just added another thing to my to do list. And I didn't realize what I was getting myself into as far as the process of making concrete vessels. But there wasn't much I could do about it because I was in right smack dab in the middle of market season, and that in itself was very time consuming. So I didn't really back burner it. I really needed to get rid of my tins. So I started having sales and that sort of stuff. But anyway, we'll get back to that. Um, it was the end of September when I was finally assigned an examining attorney. And at that time, she told me about, well, what might happen if they review my trademark application and issue what's called an office action, which it's kind of a refusal, but not, because they send their office action and the reasoning what business could possibly have a likelihood of confusion with my trademarking. And then you get 3 months to respond and dispute. And sure enough, in October, I received an office action. I I knew. I knew from the beginning that trademarking is a gamble. But what really, really threw me was the one and only business that caused the office action. The reason they gave for the likelihood of confusion is that their business name includes the word summer, and mine is winter. Apparently, because they're both seasons, that could be confusing. I mean, seriously, like, I don't know about you, but I completely disagree with that. But what's even worse is when I looked up this business and discovered that despite being trademarked themselves, they were blatantly committing trademark infringement against Mattel. You know, Barbie. Yeah, like, oh my gosh. So I immediately got a hold of my attorney and I asked her, I was like, can they really use this company against me when they're infringing on another trademark themselves? And yeah, they can. The USPTO does not take that into consideration at all. I mean, my heart and my jaw is still on the floor. But we have had 3 months to respond and dispute their claim that there's any likelihood of confusion. And it's in December, my attorney did file a response, and she filed a 150-page response. She is worth every penny. That is why I knew I needed to hire an attorney. I could not have done what she did as far as her response. And so now I am still anxiously awaiting for a reply. Um, it's almost going to be a year. It's almost a year. March 12th, 2024 is when the application was originally filed. It's now the end of January 2025, and I am literally hoping and very anxiously awaiting for a reply. I hope it could be any day. Any day I will know. And the stress of this waiting is unreal. I just can't. I just I can't even put it into words. I am going to be devastated if I don't get this trademark. So, I guess it's to be continued on that front. And hopefully any day. Okay. I'm about to now share my actual numbers for 2024. And to be honest, this makes me really, really uncomfortable. Fun fact, before I was a struggling small business owner, I was a bookkeeper, and it is ingrained in my mind that financial information is private. It's private. You don't share it. But on the flip side, I suppose, I am still working on growing this YouTube channel. Like I said, I've been here for a year now, and I'm sitting at a whopping 41 subscribers. Woohoo! Thank you for being here, all 41 of you. But I know in just watching other YouTubers, other handmade crafters, businesses, and such, that people like to hear real numbers and compare their experiences, or even just getting a glimpse into struggles and successes of other small businesses. So, as much as it very much pushes me out of my comfort zone, I do want to be transparent as far as what it looks like, at least to me, to run a small business. And, I am not near a big city. I feel like the people you see on YouTube now who have the most success, they're in big cities. The big city closest to me is 5 hours away, Denver. I'm in Western Slope, Colorado. There are not real big cities in this area. So, but if sharing my journey helps anyone feel less alone in these struggles that I am currently happening, then maybe it'll be worth it. But anyway, let me pull up my QuickBooks. Okay, I got my QuickBooks open here. And something that I have noticed with other YouTubers I feel like most YouTubers is they're real transparent and open with how much sales revenue they made, but they don't talk about expenses. You know, if you made 60 grand last year, that's phenomenal. That's really good. I would love to be able to say that I made 60 grand last year, but it leads me to the question of, but what were your expenses to get to that 60 grand? You know, that's important information to know. So I'm going to start with the expenses that I had for 2024, which was just over $15,000 in expenses. And I mean, what was that? I have to pay fees to be at the markets. I had to pay liability insurance. My attorney, I've paid over $3,000 to my attorney last year. Meals for being at these markets, that's part of an expense. And for me, office supplies and tools and equipment were kind of a hefty expense for me last year because I started powder coating. I had to get my powder coating booth. I had to get my powder coating equipment. I had to buy the powder coat, which is actually part of my cost of goods sold. It's not an expense, but anyway, all of that stuff really, really adds up. Um, a few changes that I haven't talked about that I made that increased my expenses is I really learned about how important, I know I'm late to the game, but how important your packaging is for shipping when you do get online orders. I was kind of a cheapskate when it came to that before, just in the fact that I didn't make it fun or pretty to open. It was well packaged, but it was just basic packaging. And that is so bad, I feel like, for your branding, your brand story. So I invested quite a bit of money into making my shipping materials, you know, a lot of Uline boxes, gift boxes, crinkle paper, the biodegradable peanut things. I really learned that kind of come the end of the year, like quarter 4 at some point. I was like, this isn't going to work. So, I also had to buy a new pop up and new weights this year. That was unexpected expenses. So, yeah, there's my expenses. Okay, so next up on the list of stuff is my cost of goods sold. Fun bookkeeping fact: the money you spend on the things you need to make your product, that's cost of goods sold. That's not an expense. It actually lessens your revenue. Um, but for last year, it wasn't that high for me because I tried to set myself up for success end of 23 going into 24 by bulk buying fragrance oils and those candle tins and wicks and all of that supplies. I was really hoping for a profitable 2024. So I did my best to set myself up for success. And then, like I said, mid-year, I decided I wasn't going to use those tins anymore in so I haven't made a ton of candles this year. So my cost of goods sold was just over 24. So it wasn't really that much. I spent a lot more than that the year before, and I guarantee you I'll spend a lot more than that this year because I've got to figure out these vessels. So that that's it on cost of goods. So we'll get to my actual sales. Alrighty, so let's do it this way. As I stated, let me pull up my calculator. My total expenses for 2024 was 15,151.61. Okay. I sold 14,837.13. That right there puts me at a 314 loss, but like I said, your cost of goods sold backs off your revenue. So let's also subtract 2,438. That puts me at a $2,123 loss. for 2024. Those numbers are not great. And to be even more transparent, and something that makes things even more challenging, is I do have another revenue stream that I'll be 1099 on, which means I will have to pay taxes on that income. And I'm going to be honest, it's a revenue that's not financially sustainable. It is by no means near a living wage. It's not that much, but it's just enough that even though my business is having to take a loss for 2024, there's still a chance I'm going to have to pay taxes. And it is just one of those tough realities of running a small business that I feel like nobody really talks about. Just because you didn't profit doesn't mean that the IRS isn't coming for their share of your, in my case, loss for the year. So that's another stressful aspect of going into 2025. So there it is. And you might be wondering, why on earth am I investing so much into trademarking when I don't even have a profitable business yet? But that's the key word, yet. I truly believe in what I'm doing, and I am determined to make this work. I know the quality of my products, and I am so committed to growing Winter Moon Gifts. I know what it can be. I know what it's not right now, but I do know what it can be and its potential. So this year I will be back at 2 markets, and hopefully I'll figure out the direction of my candle line. I really don't understand why it's such a struggle for me. I'm struggling. I've realized that the making of my own vessels, it just wasn't the right move. It is far too time consuming. It literally takes almost a month from start to finish to have a sellable candle, and that's only 4 candles at a time, 2 9-ounce, 2 3-ounce. So, but I did invest some money into that with my personalized logo molds and vessels. So that's going to have to just be a special edition item moving into 2025. And I'm going to have to start purchasing vessels. And I'm struggling with that. Like I said, I don't understand why I'm struggling so bad. I just am not finding vessels that say, yeah, that's the type and the color of vessel that I want for this specific scent. So I'm really struggling with that, but I will get it figured out. I've also stepped up the market game because that's where majority of my income comes from right now. My booth design needed a serious upgrade, so I did design some new displays, and the last couple of weekends, hubby and I have worked on those. I actually have them. So I'm pretty excited about that. And it's going to elevate my curb appeal and hopefully align perfectly with my vision of luxury and sustainability and nostalgia, just everything that I want to exude, my business to exude, from a bystander's viewpoint. I need people to look at my booth and be like, what is that? I want to go in there and look because that booth is awesome. So hopefully I've made that happen. And then on social media front, I'm going to keep pushing forward on that too. I really want to find online success. So someday I don't have to sacrifice my entire summer, year in and year out, vending. If I could only keep the one, I would really be happy with that, just because I like it and I love it so much, and I'm really a part of that market. My goal is for that to have to be the only one because my online is successful, but it's something else I worry about, especially here on YouTube, is as far as like this presence, I don't know if I'm relatable or even likable enough to gain any real traction. But if I don't do it at all, then it's never going to happen, right? I'm just like everything, I've got to keep trying and pushing forward. So I'm stepping into 2025 a lot like 2024 with big plans, big goals, big dreams, but let's be honest, it's also plenty of stress and anxiety right now. But this business is just, it's my person. I've said it a million times and I'll keep saying it. This business is my person. I'm so invested into its success and I want it so badly that I can't give up on it. That would be ridiculous. So, if this video has resonated with you, I would really love for you to join me on this journey and invite you to subscribe and maybe even give this video a thumbs up. And I'd love comments. I would love to talk about this with everybody in the comments. So, and hopefully the next time you see me here, I will be celebrating my trademark approval. Fingers crossed. I hope. But I'll see you then.